in the course of my travels, I've come to appreciate the uniqueness of America. This is a very unusual country in lots of ways. But it's very unique in one way, and that is that America is the country with the greatest number of churches and seminaries and Christian colleges, the greatest number of Christian radio and television and bookstores and resources. We have books, DVDs, magazines, music, movies, concerts, camps, conferences. There's no country that is even a close second place. But if you've been paying attention to this country over the last few decades, and especially the last few years, you'll realize that America is becoming less Christian every day. Why is that? Why is it that the country with the greatest number of Christian resources, and we're getting more all the time, is becoming less and less Christian, even anti-Christian? George Washington was our first president, and in his presidential farewell address in 1796, he said this: "Of all the dispositions and habits which lead to political prosperity, religion and morality are indispensable supports." He was thinking of the Christian religion. John Adams, our second president, said this 2 years later: "We have no government armed with power capable of contending with human passions, unbridled by morality and religion. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." John Adams was a committed Christian. Benjamin Franklin was not a Christian, but he said this just before he died: "I am convinced that the moral and religious system which Jesus Christ transmitted to us is the best the world has ever seen or can see." He also said, "Only a virtuous people are capable of freedom. As nations become corrupt and vicious, they have more need of masters." Thomas Jefferson, our third president, also was not a Christian, but he said this: "The doctrines of Jesus are simple and tend to all the happiness of mankind." And Charles Carroll of Carrolton, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, said this in 1800: "Without morals, a republic cannot subsist any length of time. They, therefore, who are decrying the Christian religion, whose morality is so sublime and pure, are undermining the solid foundation of morals, the best security for the duration of free governments." We've come a long ways from those statements, haven't we? Newsweek cover story 2009, "The Decline and Fall of Christian America." Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, three of our Ivy League universities, they were all started to train men for Christian ministry. They are now temples of atheism. And we are facing a moral crisis that even many non-Christians are concerned about. Millions of pages of pornography on the internet that are destroying lives, including the lives of some Christian leaders who get hooked on that pornography. We have murdered 60 million babies in America through abortion since Roe versus Wade. That is 10 times as many Jews as Adolf Hitler killed. The divorce rate inside the church is as high, well, actually now it's higher than outside the church, and that's because more and more people who aren't in the church aren't even bothering with getting married. Homosexual marriage is now the law of the land. We're having court battles about who can go into what bathroom. And not only is teen suicide on the rise, but I just read a report just the other day, in almost every state in America, suicides are up, not just among the teens. But the problems are not just out there in the secular culture. Back in 2000, Barna Research reported a minority of born-again adults, only 44%, and an even smaller proportion of born-again teenagers, 9%, are certain of the existence of absolute moral truth. Think about that. Those teenagers in 2000 are now heads of corporate America, professors in the universities. Some of them are sitting on the courts of judges, are sitting in the halls of Congress at the state and national level. And they don't believe in moral absolutes. It's no surprise that we are seeing what we're seeing. 2 years later, the American Family and Crises research by the Southern Baptist Council on Family Life uncovered some disturbing facts. Of the children raised in evangelical homes, 88% leave the church at age 18 and never return. And what this and other studies have shown is that this is not simply a Southern Baptist problem. This is happening across the denominational lines. We're losing anywhere from 60 to 80% of the young people are walking away from the faith, walking away from the church, and many are walking away from the faith that they were raised in when they graduate from high school. Well, we wanted to know why, and so we commissioned America's Research Group to find out for us, and we published the results of that survey in the book Already Gone. It was a survey to 20,000 people to find 1,000 people that fit this description. They were between the ages of 20 and 29. They grew up in conservative Christian homes and churches, and they rarely or never go to church. And we wanted to know why. And we found out a lot of very interesting things in that survey. But one question we asked is, when did you first start to have doubts about the truth of the Bible? And we thought the problem really started in college, because the university is a very hostile place for the Christian today. But we were surprised. 44% said they started to have doubts in high school, 40% in middle school, 4% in grade school. They were getting questions that were causing them to doubt the Bible, and they weren't getting answers. They weren't getting answers at home or in church. And those questions were working like acid on their minds and their hearts. Well, we asked them, what influenced you the most to doubt the Bible? 45% said the teaching of evolution in millions of years. And the rest of them, although they didn't put that as their first answer, they too were being influenced by those ideas. Well, those were the 20 to 29-year-olds who grew up in the church but are no longer in the church. In 2015, we did another survey to find those who grew up in conservative homes and churches but are still in the church. And we published the results of that in this book, Ready to Return. And we found some disturbing things. On the question of abortion, should it be legal? 52% of those 20-year-olds who are still in the church said, yes, or I'm not sure. Is homosexual behavior sin? 44% said, no, or I'm not sure. Does the Bible contain errors? 39% of those still in the church said yes, or I'm not sure. And why do you think the Bible contains errors? These 20 to 29-year-olds still in the church said, 52% said the teaching of evolution in millions of years. So what do all these things have to do with each other? The growing moral crisis, the anti-Christian attitudes in our culture, the mass exodus of young people from the church. Well, Psalm 11:3 says, if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? Foundations are very, very important. Here you have a really nice house. It has nice doors and windows, carpet, curtains, wallpaper, good roof over the top. Doesn't leak when it rains. But there's one thing about that house you don't see, and that is the foundation. And if the foundation has cracks in it, if the foundation has termites, it's only a matter of time. It might take years, it might take decades, but sooner or later that house will look like that. Because the superstructure cannot stand if the foundation is not secure. Now, we don't live in our foundation, but we better pay attention to it. And I want to submit to you today that the book of Genesis is foundational to the whole rest of the Bible. In fact, the first 11 chapters of Genesis are foundational to every other teaching in the Bible. Either directly or indirectly, those truths are built on the foundational truths of Genesis 1 to 11. And what we have seen happen over the last 200 years, as first the idea of millions of years was developed by deist and atheist geologists, and then Darwin built on those ideas with his theory of biological evolution. And then we come into the 20th century and we have the Big Bang theory for the origin of the universe. The more that the church has compromised with those ideas and tried to harmonize the Bible with those ideas, or ignored those ideas and just taught Bible stories, the more the church has ignored or rejected Genesis, the more we have seen the church and the culture of the once Christian West, Western Europe, Great Britain, and North America reject other doctrines as well.